Hi, welcome to my expert series where I bring you insights to help you live well, plan smart, and age confidently. I'm here today with Liz Balli from Dignity Memorial. They're the largest provider of funeral and cemetery services in the United States. I think she's going to bring a lot of insight today, really helpful tips, and I'm excited to share with you. So, Liz, thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. It's nice to see you again. And yeah, like you said, I liked the opportunity to be able to come and share some of my insight into what it is that I do and how it can really help individuals and families in whatever stage of planning that they're at in regard to making arrangements for either themselves or a loved one as they look into the future and are trying to think of what kind of end-of-life services they might need and how to financially prepare for that.
Yeah, this is all about preparing, right? And I think this is a great resource. A lot of people aren't even thinking about that, whether the children or the adults. So I'm really grateful for you being here. And I think it'll be really helpful for people to learn a little bit more of how to plan for their future. So tell me a little bit about you and Dignity Memorial.
Okay. So I am a mother of 3 boys, and I live locally in Jenkintown right now, and I'm originally from just outside of the Poconos. I grew up in Hazleton and spent some time in Scranton before I moved down here about 15 years ago. My sons lost their dad in 2021, and so this is not just a job for me, it is a passion project. I know what it looks like and feels like to have been on both ends of the spectrum. I had lost both my parents, so sometimes the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed, and then other times there was nothing done and prepared for, and it just kind of hit you all at once. And so it can be overwhelming is an understatement, and so that's kind of where I feel like I'm best able to come in and help people avoid a situation where they're really getting hit with that full force and impact all at once. So yeah, I work out of the office that we have in our Trevose location, which is Roosevelt Memorial Park, but I also make arrangements at least 3 of the other local cemeteries, which would be Forest Hills and Shalom in Huntington Valley, White Marsh Memorial in Ambler, and then Valley Forge Memorial Gardens in King of Prussia.
Okay. So you have real life experience and you understand the real need to plan, right, for the future, for yourself and for your family and loved ones. So what stage of life do you think someone should start considering buying a plot or burial planning, basically?
I'm really glad you asked that, because I feel like a lot of people are either asking that themselves in their own head, but also when you said that it's not something people like to think about, it's definitely also not something that they like to talk about. And if they're not talking about it, then they're probably not planning for it too. My best answer for that is that it's going to vary depending upon the individual, but it's never too early to set up a complimentary consultation and learn more information about it. Like, we're here talking and we're going to make some share some general information today, but it's really important to meet with an individual and family, and I just kind of listen to hear what might best suit their needs and what is a good fit for them. If they have family at one of our parks, some people start really early in life. If they're looking to be closest to their family, that's the wisest thing for them to do, because that's how they're going to secure space before entire sections sell out and then they're not nearly as close as they'd like to be. But I find most people, when they're looking at meeting with an estate attorney and setting up a will, which everybody should have a will no matter what age you are.
We talked about that here as well. Yep.
Yeah. My oldest son is 24. He's like, I think I need to put my will in place. And I'm like, that's my boy. But no, it's just wise. And then this goes hand in hand with that, so that because people should have their details about what arrangements they made in their will. That's something we could touch upon. But yeah, I would say any age is not too early to start learning about it.
What about too late? So what mistakes do families, what do you see when they wait too long?
Well, unfortunately, the longer you wait in life, the more you're going to be up against the monsters such as Alzheimer's and dementia and senility, and it really strips people and robs them of their ability to personalize their memorialization and really have the kind of input And survivor guilt is very real. I work with families all the time who struggle with the fact that they did not talk about this with, say, their aging parents, and then they worry that they made the wrong decision. They don't know what they wanted. They don't know how to proceed, and kind of beat themselves up that they didn't do it sooner. I had a woman who was 95 that had a space with us, but finished her arrangements this past year. And when she called, she's like, I think it's about time I do this. Like, 95, I think that's a good idea. But yeah, no, I mean, even when you're just approaching something that's inevitable, you absolutely want to do it before the actual time of death. When you're in an at-need situation, just making that phone call a week earlier is one less call you need to make at the time of, and not be scrambling. So I highly encourage that.
So that makes sense though, like as you're planning your will and estate, that's another thing to think of. But on the flip side, so like as a child that grew up moving in multiple states, like what happens if my parents bought a burial plot, say when we lived in Texas and then we moved? Can that be resold? Like what, how does that work if plans change basically? Can your plot be transferred?
That's another reason I strongly encourage people, definitely at the cemeteries I listed that I can help make arrangements at, to just call in and ask those questions if they have family there, or their family owns space that is not going to be used. Happens all the time. There are different options. Everyone is going to be as unique as what we're talking about here.
Every like location is
every
unique?
It could be, but every situation is going to be different too. So typically what happens is that you know, if someone passes away and they have a spouse, there's an owner on the deed, maybe they're co-owners, maybe they're not, but the property would go to their spouse first. If both of them have passed, it would be next of kin, but sometimes there's 5 siblings, there's 2 spaces left, and all 5 siblings are gonna own those 2 spaces equally. So there's steps that we can take to assist to make sure that those spaces are able to be used by someone that either agrees to it, or if people want to step away, wash their hands of it, and be like, I'm not gonna use it, they can fill out a different paper. So it can get complicated and sticky, but it gets, that's gonna increase the longer you wait to do something about it. So I would say call in. I talk to people all the time about that and really help them, because there's a lot to be saved if there's already something owned and they're able to make use of that within their family or friends.
Okay, we can probably edit this if this is too complicated. When you were saying that, I was like, can people be buried on top of each other in the same plot?
Yeah. The most that we allow for in our cemeteries is for 2 bodies to go into the same space. And that can be any combination of whether they're both traditional casket burials, or if there is a cremation burial and one's casket, one's traditional. One's traditional and one's cremation. However, it is something that we are always going to want to know in advance if somebody intends to do that. That first burial will take place lower when it gets dug. And so, and additionally, there is something that would be required, which would be a second rite, because you are going to be putting 2 bodies in one space. So that's something we talk about when we meet with people and let them know that it's an option. Really helps families when there is one space left and someone wants to be with their spouse, or brother and sister, or want to both be with their parents. So we can help them with that.
Interesting. Well, you mentioned cremation. So what are the trends towards cremation? And what are you seeing in your industry about that?
I would say that it is absolutely more popular than ever, but that also means that there's a greater number of cremation products available than ever before too. So something that we're finding a lot of people are in favor of is something called a cremation bench, where you can actually take an urn, put it right inside the bench, do the inscription on the bench. And our benches can have up to 4 holes dug out for those urns, so you can have family of 4 in a cremation bench. They love that option.
What do they do with the bench? Is it at the cemetery, or they keep the bench? Okay.
They buy, just like you'd buy a space, they buy the grounds to put the bench on. They'll purchase the bench and then the burials for the cremation urns. And so, yeah, that's a pretty option. Some of our parks have like nice tree settings, and so it can be kind of peaceful there. But we also have something, small niches. A lot of our properties have mausoleums, and so the mausoleums would be for an above ground burial, but that's not just for a crypt. Sometimes it's for a niche for an urn. And so people like that option. And I guess it really is going to be dependent whether they want to be in the ground, which is also an option for cremation, and be with family members in a plot. But yeah, there's above ground options, below ground options. We have cremation gardens. They're in really pretty settings too. So yeah, I would say if that's something you're interested in, people are choosing it more and more for all different sorts of reasons, but it doesn't mean that they don't want to be memorialized, don't want to have a place for their family to go and remember them fondly, and also be with their family members who have been interred there.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. All right. Are there any thinking like long-term, if you have your parents there or if you already purchased the lot, is there ongoing maintenance, fees that people should be aware of after they purchase the lot?
Fees, no. Ongoing maintenance, yes, it'll take place because we have something called perpetual care. So many years ago, some of the properties would reach out to people and they would want them to pay annually to take care of their loved ones' spaces. That's something that we did away with because it just wasn't practical. If you took care of your space and then the people next to you didn't, it still did not look nice. And so we want the whole park to look, yeah, exactly. So that's why HOAs exist.
That's why HOAs exist, right?
So similarly, what we do now is that's taken care of in the beginning. A certain percentage will come out for perpetual care, go into a trust, and provide for the long-term care and maintenance of the cemetery as a whole. And that maintenance goes towards a number of things. It can be removal of snow off the driveways. It could be, landscaping, grass care. We have an indoor mausoleum at least one of our locations, so that's going to pay for the air conditioning and the heating because it is temperature controlled in there, which provides for nice visitation as well. So yeah, that's some of the stuff it goes towards, but there is your upfront cost is the final cost. You do have the opportunity to finance it over time, and we do our own financing, so we have great options for that where you can put as little as 10% down and then set up a payment plan. But yeah, there isn't additional fees. What you pay, what your initial quote is all you'll pay.
That's good to know. No one likes hidden fees, so that makes sense. All right, so with planning ahead and planning sooner than later, how does that help you save long-term in this industry?
I'm really glad you asked that because I think that's probably one of the reasons I'm here spreading education and being an advocate for pre-arranging. People who made their arrangements 10 years ago, I want to say it's paid about half of what the cost would be today. And you could be looking at a similar increase 10 years from now because the price of this is just going up and up over time.
Just like everything else,
Inflation, right? Yep, it's real. And also, it's going to be limited in quantities with certain cemeteries. All of the ones I listed, we have space available at today, and we will continue to for quite some time, many years to come. But I do know of other places that have completely sold out. And so supply and demand.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much land, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, meeting with families, I really like to talk to them about the financial benefits of doing this sooner rather than later, because what they're going to do is lock in at today's pricing, and they won't be facing, the increase over time.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Planning is so important. All right, so final question, unless you have more tips, but I'm curious as a child that has parents that have planned, thankfully, they called me when they got their plot. Like, they were excited. Hey, we got our plots. Yeah. Not every parent's gonna do that. So how do the heirs know that their loved one has planned ahead and has this?
Yeah, I mean, we're working with families consistently because we will encourage people to do exactly what your parents do. Share the information with others, because when people do this and plan for their retirement, you see couples who are also in retirement traveling together. So they're getting in cars together, getting on planes together, going on cruise ships together, and accidents happen. And we know that. And so in a worst case scenario, if something were to happen to the two of them, somebody else should know about this information. So that's why I said put it in your will, talk to your children about it. If they didn't, that information would be available at the cemetery. We are often looking for someone to list the next of kin because in the event that someone passes away, we usually at the cemetery get a call from the funeral home first. The funeral home will reach out to us and ask, does this person have arrangements at your cemetery? We'll look up their file in our records and confirm, yes, they have space here. Are all the arrangements in place? Yes, they are, or no, there's X amount owed still. And so then they're putting us in touch with the next of kin, or we're reaching out to who they have listed. And so we don't want to wait until it gets to that point. So it's always better to do that ahead as well.
Right.
But yeah.
Have it all in your packet of your will, everything, and give it to your kid or heir. I was curious when you were talking, do you guys follow up with people that have already purchased? Like maybe send them something yearly or something just to like keep them in touch, and then maybe their heir could find that too. Like, oh, you know.
Yeah, I definitely do.
Okay.
Oftentimes when I'm working with a family, I'm building a relationship with them.
Right.
I don't expect
Personal.
I don't expect them to do business with somebody that they don't trust. So when I'm meeting with them, I want to get to know them, what's important to them, like I said, and so we get to know each other and we build a relationship. And so oftentimes I am staying in touch with them after. I check in on them to make sure all their financing is going well. If they ever need to, if they set up a payment plan and they put it on a certain credit card and they need to change that because they closed out an account.
Right.
I just check in with them about that, and holiday greetings, stuff like that. I do. I reach out, and then oftentimes it is family that want to make. So we do work with their kids, their kins, their friends and loved ones. I get a lot of referrals to, say like, oh, I have a friend who also needs to do this, and so I told her about you, which is great, and I'm very appreciative of that. But I think when you mentioned tips, that is something that I do want to touch upon because the information that we just talked about sharing, when I meet with a family or an individual, I'm always giving them a personal planning guide. So it's a complimentary tool that we hand out to a family that we get together with for an appointment, and it helps them navigate what all we just talked about and more. So if that personal planning guide is filled out in its entirety, it's about 95% of what your loved ones would need to know if something happened to you.
Wow.
The very first page you fill out is everything that's needed to produce a death certificate, which is always the first thing that's needed in a situation like this. But if you make arrangements at a funeral home, you can fill out those pages. When you make arrangements with the cemetery, you fill out those pages, but it's list your financial accounts and information so people know what to shut down and freeze, which is so important because there's a lot of fraud and scam out there.
Right.
So I take them through all that, and that's why I say just having the opportunity to get together, I have yet to have somebody walk away from that and not feel like it was time well spent and worthwhile, because I'm going to provide them with invaluable information that not everybody's thinking about, because I live it every day. So
yeah, and that sounds very helpful. And I mean, it sounds like you and your company give like pretty good white glove service, and I don't know if that would be like every place either, so that's really good to know what you can provide and what you should expect when you're going to do this.
Yeah, there definitely is different levels of care, and we want to be able to serve the families in our community as best as we can. I would want that for my loved ones, and so
this is really helpful. Any other tips that we should know about that we maybe glossed over, but also
a lot of the things that people have a misconception of, like, oh, we'll just wait and my insurance will take care of this. I really like to strongly impress upon people that insurance does not pay out overnight, and it takes months for estates to settle. So you're still going to be coming out of pocket initially to go to burial, and that's not best case. I never want to be sitting across from a widow who has to pull out her checkbook on the day that she lost her husband in the early morning hours and bounce from funeral home to cemetery to finalize arrangements that could have been put in place sooner. So that's really my message, is that, help me avoid those situations, because it's not a position I want to see anyone listening to this in.
You're not having to focus on the financial aspect right now. There's so many emotions going on.
Yeah.
It's the last thing that you probably want to focus on.
And you can, plans are fluid there. That's the other benefit of being part of a large corporation, is that we offer our families the flexibility. If you make arrangements, you're in the realty world, kind of like it can be treated like a starter home. If we expand and do a new garden and you say, oh, I'd like to be over there, you can take the equity of what you put into that, roll it over, and then choose a different spot. And we provide that at all our cemeteries. So if you make arrangements in the Philadelphia area, but you wind up retiring to Florida, California, you can actually get like for like services. So you can take what you have here. If you bought 2 mausoleum crypts, go down to Florida and get 2 mausoleum crypts there, which might, again, doing it sooner is going to get you the best price. Then years from now, you move down there, you really made out on that deal. A lot of people don't know that they can do that, but as long as it's more than 75 miles away from where you initially purchased, it's a really nice asset.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially because you are, national, so you can go different states and figure it out if you do make a move. So you guys got some really good tips, and hopefully you'll inspire to prepare. Again, this is my expert series. I'm Kelly Stain, a residential realtor here in the Philadelphia area, just trying to spread some planning tips and help everyone live a joyful life. So thanks.